welcome to the fourth in our series of nutrition talks here at Get Fit Plus. My name is Alyssa Monteleone and I am with Simply Good Thinking. So over the course of the past three conversations, we've talked about the foods that we want to start incorporating into our systems, and we talked a little bit about cleansing. So the next thing that I want to do is talk about truly nourishing our bodies and what we're going to start consuming to give us energy. Now, obviously, the fruits and vegetables that we talked about give us energy, but their calorie count, calories are energy, their calorie count is lower. And so we need calories to function. And I know a lot of us that are looking to cut down our physical size get really caught up in the whole calorie thing. But without calories, we don't function. We don't have energy. And when you consume too few calories, what ends up happening is your body goes into starvation mode and it says, hold on to everything you have. And your metabolism will start going down, and then you become less efficient in burning any calories. So if you don't consume enough calories, you're totally undermining your whole body in the way that we function. So counting calories is something that I don't do. I definitely think that being aware of the amount of food that I'm consuming is relevant, but I really don't think that eating requires math. I have just abandoned that idea over the millions of diets that I've been on, and believe me, I have been on every diet. You give me a diet, I've been there. And the only thing that worked for me was to eat healthy and stop getting caught up in all of that stuff. Just enjoy my food and just start making better choices. So that being said, there's a big movement right now towards low-carb diets. You might have heard of, obviously, Atkins was really huge and had a resurgence about maybe 8 years back. Right now it's primal and paleo diets. And the philosophy behind these diets is that our bodies are designed to consume animal protein. And there's a lot of research that actually says, yes, that is true, that we are designed to digest and properly utilize protein from animals. And there's controversy around this, and one of the things that's changed over the course of the past 50 years or more is that the quality of the protein that we're consuming is changed. You know, we as a society have decided how to treat our food and the animals that provide us with that food. And so, unfortunately, it goes beyond what we should be eating and how our food is being treated. So, without getting too far into that, a lot of the controversy around protein and high protein diets can go beyond just the quality of the food. But let's get into how protein can benefit us, regardless of the source. So protein is actually a large, complex, organic molecule. And our bodies are made up of proteins, and we consume proteins, and our body uses proteins. So when you think about the fact that every single cell in our body has some protein in it, you realize that protein is obviously an essential part of who we are. Structurally, our skin, our hearts, our lungs, all of our organs, every cell are made up of protein. Our bones, our cartilage is protein, and then you get into your hair color, your eye color are determined by proteins. Functioning, blood clotting is based on protein. The lubrication in your joints, the antibodies that are developed when you get sick to protect us and keep us alive. Our hormones have protein, and our hormones are extremely important, not only for how our body functions, but how we feel. And finally, energy. Protein gives us energy. So it makes up physically who we are, and it also makes up how we function and how we feel. I mean, that just makes a case for protein right there. But when it comes to consuming protein, all food, or most foods, contain some level of protein. So, even fruits and vegetables have some level of protein because they're made up of cells. So obviously there has to be protein available. But it's minimal, and it's certainly not the main value to us as we intake that as part of our diet. Animal protein is obviously the most concentrated form of protein, and so you can eat smaller quantities of animal protein or animal foods to get more proteins than if you eat fruits and vegetables. You'd have to eat huge amounts of fruits and vegetables to get that same amount of protein, and we just don't have enough time in our day, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that there's not non-animal sources of protein. Certainly seeds, nuts, and legumes are excellent sources of protein. There are also proteins in grains to some degree that are accessible from our systems, to our systems, sorry. And so the next thing that you have to look at is quality of protein. And when I say quality of protein, I'm not talking about what I mentioned before with the humane treatment of the animals and all of that kind of thing, but I'm talking about chemically the quality of protein. So high quality protein or complete proteins provide all of the amino acids that make up a complete protein. So we don't need to get into the science of all of that, but a complete protein means just that. It is complete. Amino acids are essential component of protein, and it's what our body breaks it all down and then uses the different amino acids into our system and applies it to whatever function that it needs to go to. So the amino acids are essential, and that's why they're called essential amino acids. Our bodies are designed to digest and absorb animal-sourced protein and complete proteins. That is what all this stuff, the miles and miles of intestinal tract that we have in our systems are meant to do. And when we keep our bodies healthy by drinking the water, eating the greens, making sure we have the fiber, respecting our liver and our other organs, proteins digest very beautifully and are used completely. That, again, doesn't mean that you have to have animal protein, but meat from animals, fish from fish, poultry, chicken, goose, turkey, pigeon. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure people eat pigeon. I don't know. I don't eat pigeon, but I'm sure they're available. Quail. I think that's really pigeon. They just put the thing on it and make it tiny. Anyway. And then there's eggs. And eggs, are an amazing source of protein. And in fact, in many arguments, one of the best sources of protein. And eggs are easily available. And one of the most digestible and usable sources of protein. So even if you choose to go on a vegetarian diet for whatever reason, eggs could be something that if you can incorporate eggs into your diet is an excellent choice. So then getting into the non-animal sources of protein. So these sources of protein are called low quality or incomplete proteins. And again, that's not saying that they're low quality, meaning that they're not good, but rather that they are missing one or more of those amino acids. So it's not a complete protein, hence incomplete protein. So the vegetable sources or vegetarian sources of protein, again, we've mentioned nuts, seeds, legumes, right? So beans, peanuts are really a legume, they're not a nut. Little aside, my dad calls them peanuts. I don't know why, but I always joke around because he's so intellectual. They're not really a nut, and that's why he says it weird, but that's really not true. He just says it weird, but it makes him feel better. And I love him, and it's almost Father's Day, so I just threw that in there. Okay, so, but there are two other sources that I want to mention here. Soy is a very good vegetarian source of protein, and we'll get into that just a little bit about some of the things you want to think about in quinoa. So quinoa is really actually a seed, and you can buy quinoa. It's readily available. It's still not a full, complete source of protein, but it is very usable. And you can use it instead of your grains. So you can use it in the morning instead of like oatmeal. You can use it as a pilaf. You can make tabbouleh. I mean, you really can use it any way you want to. Some people take to it right away. Other people, you have to get used to it a little bit because it's different. I mean, it's not rice. It's not pasta. It's quinoa. And it took me a long time to learn how to say quinoa, so, that alone. And, but now I practiced before I started this, so that's good. And you can get quinoa in brown, black, red, and who knows, they'll find some other color. And they're basically all nutritionally the same. But you should definitely consider incorporating quinoa. Even if you are eating animal proteins, quinoa still is a great thing. So now soy. Soy, in and of itself, is great. And the more whole you can eat your soy, the better. So edamame, which you eat in like a Japanese restaurant, is a great whole source of soy. But it's still a vegetable, and it's harder for our systems to digest this. So one way that makes it easier to digest soy is to use it in a fermented format, and that's called tempeh. So tempeh is soy that they chop up, and then they introduce fungus to it, or bacteria to it, and it gets fungus and it all sticks together. I know you're going to leap out to go get this now. But actually it's very, very good. And it can be prepared almost like a meat. Kind of like, people that say portobello mushrooms is like the meat, but portobello mushrooms nutritionally don't have the same protein impact that tempeh does. So if you're looking for a vegetarian source of protein and you want to look at soy, I really think that tempeh is the great way to go. Miso is good. Tofu is good, but it is highly processed. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be incorporated, but eat it, see how you feel. If you feel good, have it once or twice a week. When you get down to soy milks and all of that kind of stuff, I'll be honest with you, that stuff is highly, highly processed, and in order for it to taste remotely good, it's usually got a bunch of fillers in it, sugar or some kind of sweetener, a thickener of some kind, usually some kind of seaweed weirdness in there. A color can be in it. And again, if we always talk, well, not always, but for the past 3 weeks, with that list of ingredients is really long, I mean, really think about it. I mean, it's soy milk. Why does it have all that stuff in it? And when numbers start getting involved in the ingredients, so soy milk, there's other milks that you can include into your system, or into your diet rather, like almond milk, almonds, water, put it in the Vitamix, almond milk, it's pretty good. But we'll get into recipes another time. Protein, I think it's very important to be consuming the right amount, whether you are okay with being an omnivore, which in all honesty we really are physically designed to be. Omnivore means we eat plants and animals. There's a great book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. It really talks about the social issues involved with being a meat eater, but there's very little argument against the fact that we were designed to consume meat. That being said, our systems are highly adaptable, and there were certainly times in our history and certainly areas of the world before we could get every place in 12 hours, that there wasn't a lot of meat available, and those people thrived. So they found other sources of protein. Milk is another thing. Dairy, again, there's a lot of controversy around dairy. We're not going to get into that today, but they're finding some kind of protein, some source of protein, be it vegetarian or animal-based, is essential part of a healthy diet. A lot of times when we're working out, people will get into eating more protein, and instead of eating 14 chickens or something, or 8 dozen eggs, these guys will take protein shakes, and women too. And there's a lot of do a shake in the morning and a shake in the night, and weigh 2 pounds or whatever. And the caution that I have on protein shakes is, first of all, philosophically, as I mentioned, I'm a whole food gal. So my feeling is, I like to eat, I'm going to eat. I do not like to drink my calories. minus that wine thing, but that's separate. So again, all that just getting into your body, and you're not like chewing it, and the digestion starts in your mouth, right? There's all kinds of enzymes and stuff in your mouth. So as you're chewing your food, it's starting to digest and break down. That's why you need to chew your food thoroughly. But again, I digress. So you're chewing and it's digesting. If you're just sucking that puppy back, boom, it's like bypassing that. I mean, the enzymes are like maybe leaping on there. I mean, I don't know. I'm not part of someone's mouth, but you know, it's not there very long for sure. The other thing is that those shakes, unless you're like pureeing liver, which, you know, is a thing, but again, no recipes. You're eating some kind of a man-made protein thing. Usually it's made up of amino acids. And if those amino acids are not put into that shake or powder in the appropriate balance, what'll happen is your system begins to be compromised, and so because it's getting too much of one thing and not enough of another, it can affect the absorption of other amino acids. So you're getting these amino acids, but then these amino acids aren't really absorbing properly. And part of the explanation for that is that our bodies, I told you that we're designed to absorb proteins, but that's in a whole food form. So, you know, scientists still don't get, you know, really how our body does what it does, because some of it's just amazing. It's just a mystery. And they just began to realize that isolating things and taking them out of the whole food context, because they realized that, you know, like in soy, for instance, soy isolate, they found the proteins in the soy and then they shoved that into everything to make them higher protein. It doesn't function in our bodies properly, and our bodies began to reject it and react to it, and then there were soy allergies. So these shakes, again, you know, they're not a whole food and they're not perfectly balanced in the amino acids. So does it mean you can't use them? You know, I'm not going to suggest that. I know that there's a lot of scientific research that are put into these products, but you know, you could always throw in some almond butter or you know, that raw egg into your shake, and that's another way to go. Okay, so one of the concerns that we have when we look at having animal source protein is saturated fats and raising our cholesterol. So we're going to talk a little bit about the role of fat in our body. I'm not going to really get into all the different kinds of fats, because there's why they are what they are is really, like, you know, based on the bonds and the chemical makeup, and I never can remember all the names, and I'd be reading the whole time, and so that would be boring. So for the sake of today's conversation, we're just going to talk about what the role of fat is in our bodies, and then what are some of the ones that we want to avoid and the ones we definitely want to incorporate, and what the sources of those are. So fat is a lipid, and a lipid is basically a class of nutrients that do not dissolve in water, which we know because it floats, right? So if you make oil and vinegar and the oil floats, or you say, you know, I don't know, there's a thing about, it's like oil, oh yeah, they get along like oil and water, you know, they don't really mesh. Now it's scary because we have figured out a way to mesh them scientifically, and we break down the fat molecules so far that they actually stay together forever. Homogenized milk would be an example of that. We break down those fat molecules through some process, and now our milk doesn't separate. So even though I shake my half and half in the morning, it's really quite unnecessary, which, you know, I'm not get into that. But anyway, so fat, what does it do for us? Well, it gives us energy. It protects us at a cellular level, so it creates like a little bubble wrap around the cell, and then it also protects us on a macro level. So it protects our organs internally, And then it protects our bodies externally. So, they joke around, with women with big tookies, and you fall down and you say, oh, well, I'm what? Some. And that's important, and that's what it is. I mean, fat also is aesthetically necessary. It rounds us out. It gives us shape. I don't know. I embrace that part of it. So again, not the story for today, but it also helps us absorb the right fats. So it helps in the way we metabolize fat that we intake in our diet. So it also helps us feel satiated. So when we consume food that has the correct amount of fats in it, it makes us feel full. I don't know if any of you were around in the 80s when everything was fat-free, but I mean, you could just eat like 14 pounds of those SnackWells because they were fat-free, and you were never freaking full. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that crazy, and because there was no fat. And then they came up with weird fake fats. Those didn't last very long, thank goodness. And then it also, not only does it make us feel satiated, but it also enhances the flavor of the food, right? Something with a little fat, like salad, for instance, and you put a high-quality dressing on it in the proper amount, it tastes way better, and it actually is better for you. So let's talk about the fats that you don't want to consume first. Basically, we mentioned this last time, hydrogenated oils and trans fatty acids. Again, these are chemically created fats. The reason that those fats were created were basically because it improves the shelf life of something. So they can put it into something, put it into a box, and it can be there for an exponentially long time. The idea of the yodel that'll never go away, or the Twinkie, that'll be there with the cockroaches if we ever get a nuclear holocaust. So, unfortunately, that stuff isn't untrue. And fortunately, also, Hostess almost went out of business, but then they're not, and so the Twinkie's still with us, so we're safe. Sources of these kinds of fats are margarines, like Crisco is hydrogenated fat, and I think that they've changed it and they say no trans fatty acids. But just so you know, in truth in labeling, you can say there are no trans fatty acids if there's under a certain percentage, and I think it's like either 0.5 or 0.05 per serving, and you can say that there's none, and there is some. And then so you think per serving, and then nobody actually uses what the serving is, and so then you have 1 gram of trans fatty fat when you put together your full serving. So just something to be aware of. Any of the fake fats that are still lingering around there that I just don't pay attention to anymore, don't have those. Fried foods, so when you heat something and then you fry it, the fats cannot be healthy for you. Eliminating fried foods is something that would definitely benefit you from both a health standpoint and a weight loss standpoint. Doesn't mean you can't ever have a French fry, don't worry, but just not as a staple. And then the other thing that we talked about last week that I just want to reiterate is that when you overheat any oil, it's not good. So it's important to understand what the smoke point of any oil that you're using is. So I mentioned that olive oil is extremely healthy for you, but you can't overheat it. It's really best used over a medium heat. Oils that are better for cooking are butter, coconut oil, sesame oil. They have higher heating points. And then the last thing I want to mention on the fats to avoid, are really look at your vegetable oils. Your vegetable oils, how do you get oil out of corn? I mean, corn is basically fat-free, and yet we have corn oil. How does that happen? It does, so obviously there's a way, but I don't know. I don't get it, and so go read about it and decide for yourself. But I personally avoid it because if it doesn't have fat in it in the whole form, I don't know how they get fat out of it. Whatever. Okay, so let's talk about what we should be eating. So what we should be eating are oils that come from nuts. Walnut oil is great. Almond oils are great. Any seed oils, so you're looking at sesame seed, sunflower seed oil, flaxseed oil, I mentioned that last time. Very good source of omega fatty acids, essential fatty acids. Another great source of essential fatty acids are fish oils. We're going to get into quality here in a second. Olive oil, awesome. Avocado oil, awesome. Coconut oil, awesome. Okay, so those are your vegetable sourced oils. When it comes to fish oil, thing you want to keep in mind is there's mercury concerns around fish, and those concentrated fish oils, you really need to find out if they've been tested for mercury. It's extremely important because you're concentrating it. You know, if you're going to go and you're going to eat sardines, those are small fish. They're usually lower in mercury just because they're not around that long to absorb the mercury. Anchovies are really good, but I'm Italian, so you know. But when you're getting those fish oils in a capsule form, just really make sure that the source has tested for that mercury. And sometimes that means they're a little bit more expensive, but it's so worth it. The other thing is that when oils are made, they can be made in 3 ways. 1, they can be heated. 2, they can be treated with a chemical called hexane. And then 3, they can be cold pressed. And there may be other methods, but those are the 3 major methods. So when it's heated, again, we've talked about heating things, heating your oils and what temperatures. So heated can be challenging because then it's also then stored. So, you know, how high was it heated? Hexane, there's nutritional controversies around hexane and the effects that it has on our bodies. Hexane is some kind of a chemical process that they use that basically leaches every single last bit of oil out of that thing possible because, you know, that's efficient and that's great. Maybe that's how they get the oil out of that corn. I really don't know still. But then cold press. So cold press is just that. You take the olive, you press it, and the oil comes out. And it's a cold process. So the oil isn't being heated, and it's just in its natural state. I love butter. I think butter is great. I think that you can make butter. Best way to make butter is to get some raw milk and shake it, shake it, shake it. You can do it also in a food processor, and you'll have the most amazing butter you've ever experienced in your life. But short of that, just regular butter is fine. Salted or unsalted doesn't really matter. Cultured butter means just that. They put a culture into it to basically ferment it slightly. The benefit of that is really mostly flavor. It might have extended shelf life a little bit, but that's really not the value of it. And most cultured butters are unsalted, but I'm sure you get salted as well. And then just the naturally occurring animal fats in the foods that you're eating. So, you know, I know we all like say, oh, I'll just have skinless, boneless chicken breast and eat that dry thing and say it's fantastic. But, you know, eating the fats that come in the food normally, you know, eating a chicken leg, I mean, you don't have to eat the skin. It's all like, you know, slimy unless it's Kentucky Fried Chicken, which you really maybe shouldn't have because it's fried. But, you know, eating dark meat, getting those fats in is good, you know, along with the whole chicken, you know, eat the breast too. Red meats, you know, the cholesterol myth is pretty fascinating. That's a whole nother subject in and of itself. But cholesterol in and of itself is not bad. It's actually extremely valuable in our system, and it's used for all kinds of things, including repairing arteries. You know, when you have clogged arteries, it's not cholesterol that's in there. The cholesterol is gone because your artery's in such rough shape that the cholesterol goes to try to fix the wall. When you get an artery and it's clogged, it's usually like lime and other things. It's not cholesterol that's in there. There's just a lot of cholesterol trying to hold it together. it's really interesting. I would definitely suggest that you research a little bit about more cholesterol if you're looking to incorporate more animal proteins into your diet. So finally, I'll end up with how much fat should you have. When you're looking at incorporating high-quality fats into your diet, I think that the upper end of what the dietary, whatever that thing is, the pyramid, or we're using a plate now, whatever they're talking about, is about 30%, 25 to 30%. I definitely would go with that. I think that consuming enough high-quality fat is extremely important, and it makes our food taste better, and it makes us feel better, and it's good. So I think that's it for me today. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to our conversations next time. Thanks.